Hi sweetpeas, it's Shaaba. Welcome back to my channel and thank you for clicking on another Thursday video. Now you may have come here from Jamie's channel or because you're just interested in IVG and happen to have stumbled across it. What is it? How does it work? Can we use it? How new? How scary? Don't you worry lads, I'm gonna answer all of that and more. But first, a little lesson about the birds and the bees. When a mummy and daddy love each other very much is the start to every baby story ever, right? We know how babies are made. There is an egg and there is a sperm and the sperm smacks into the egg and boom. Baby. But this does mean that men without sperm, for example cisgender men who are just naturally infertile or who have experienced trauma, or trans men or even non-binary people would be unable to have biological children of their own using sperm. Similarly, cisgender women who are naturally infertile or who have experienced trauma, or trans women will be unable to have biological babies of their own using eggs. Often to get the gametes, these aforementioned people would have to rely on a donor of some sort. And the way that would work is through a process called IVF, which stands for in vitro fertilisation. This is a well-known process and basically it's where the conception of a baby happens outside and sort of with scientists in a lab before being placed into a person. So the egg and the sperm and the boom and the babying happens in a petri dish before going back into a womb to become a full-grown baby. But very clever scientists have been working on a new conception method known as in vitro gametogenesis, or IVG for short, because let's face it, that's a real mouthful. In the simplest of terms, they've found a way to create sperm or egg cells required for conception through using other cells from your body, such as cells from your skin or the inside of your cheek. So how exactly do they do this? Now I am no scientist, I have to disclaim, but I have done a lot of research into this area. So what I'm about to tell you is from sources that I do trust and which have been reported by medical professionals. From what I understand from the process, they take a cell and they reverse engineer that cell, turning them into like a baby cell state. Again, not a scientific professional term. And then they grow that tiny early stage cell into a full-blown egg cell or sperm cell. And the way that they do that is by placing them next to the cells that they want to be like. Mind-blowing, right? The only metaphor that is coming to my head right now is from Friends, when Rachel's on the phone to her dad and is like, I've been grown up to be a purse, but what if I don't want to be a purse now? What if I want to be a hat? Imagine the little cell has been plucked from a family of cells destined to be purses and instead has been moved into a family of hats and reversed Benjamin Button style into a little baby cell that will now grow up in this new family and influenced to be a hat instead. Everything in my body is wanting me to go, no, you do you cell, you do what you want to do. You want to be a shoe, you be a shoe. Oh, maybe Rachel's metaphor involved being a shoe and not a hat. I'm very confused now. My point is, the way that they can manipulate these cells is very cool and could mean a lot of things for a lot of people. So does this reverse engineering process really work? Well, settle down kids, because there's about to be a scientific story time. Once upon a time, in 2016-2017, a scientific team in Japan tried out this process on 2 female mice. They extracted cells from these mice and turned them into gametes, eggs and sperm. The egg and sperm was then fertilized, IVF style, and placed back into a mouse. And those mice went on to have babies successfully. Fun fact, little mice babies are called pups, which I think is really cute. What's even better than that is that those babies went on to be able to have babies of their own, showing that their babies were fertile and their method of conception didn't affect their fertility. Sadly, this scientific team did try the same process with 2 male mice as well, but unfortunately most of those pups died within a matter of days. So they're still working on the science of that one. But still, this is incredible scientific progress. Now I hear you ask, why is it important to the world that 2 female mice have been able to have babies together? I mean, cute for them, but how does that affect me? Well, like many scientific methods, this trial test could really be used to replicate the process in humans in our society. Firstly, it could help couples who can't have biological babies of their own. That could be same-sex couples, or people like Jamie and I if you know our story, or even people who are infertile due to things like cancer or cell failure. It can be very traumatic for people to find out that they can't have biological kids of their own, and this could be a way forward that could help solve that. Secondly, it can also help people who experience menopause. Typically, menopause, one effective which is that you stop having periods and therefore can't have babies anymore, is a process that happens in your 40s onwards. But some people can experience premature menopause, and that can be really difficult for them to accept if they want to have kids but can't at this early stage. IVG could be a great solution for them if they could use other cells and use those to turn into biological eggs of their own, even for people who experience menopause at a more traditional age. In countries like Japan, the average life expectancy of a woman can be upwards of 85 years old, and that means that for some people, for more than half of their life, they're unable to have children in a time where they may be financially and time-wise very healthy and able to have and raise children. Thirdly, it could also help people who have hereditary or genetic diseases that absolutely guaranteed would be passed down to a biological baby of their own. There is already an amazing scientific development that has passed human trials that does have ethical and legal clearance, and that is currently practiced here in the UK. And that is known as the 3-person baby method. I can speak about that more in another video if you're interested. But IVG could also be a very viable option for that. In theory, and I say theory lightly, this could also mean that people could have babies on their own. And by that I mean the same skin cells could be used to create eggs and sperm from the same individual. Whilst I personally don't necessarily see that as a good thing, there are some animals and species that already do that. And to be fair, cloning is already possible, as recently proved by the man who managed to clone his cat. But whilst IVG does provide a lot of opportunity for a lot of different people with a lot of different reasons, there are some issues that still need to be ironed out and addressed. But before I move on to discussing those dilemmas, there are 2 things I'd like to point out. Firstly, this isn't something that is possible in humans right now, at least not to public knowledge. Yes, they've done it on mice, yes, they know in theory how to do it in humans, but this hasn't actually been a tried and tested case. So for those of you who are using this as hope, that's absolutely fine to consider it as an option in the future, but right now it is not a possibility. So just wanted to put that out there. The second point that I wanted to mention was based off of a ton of comments from you guys asking about chromosomes on the video that Jamie and I just did on his channel. Super quick biology lesson for the most part, and whilst chromosomes do not, I have to stress this, do not determine your gender. Typically, as in 99% of the population, biological females have XX chromosomes and biological males have XY chromosomes. That's why if a male and a female, talking in super heteronormative terms here, were to have a baby, their child could be any combination of that. It could be XX or XY, meaning it could be a biological boy or a biological girl. However, with these mice, because 2 biological female mice were used, that means that there were 4 X chromosomes used in the process. XX from one female mouse, and XX from another female mouse. That does mean that their children could only have been biologically female too. Again, there are exceptions to this rule, but it's such a rare occurrence that for the most part it's the easiest way to understand. So that does mean that at the minute, on the current science methods that are being discussed, 2 biological females who wish to have kids in this way would also only be able to have females. If they find a way for this process to work sustainably for 2 males to be able to conceive in this way, then 2 males would be able to have either boys or girls because they both have the XY chromosomes available for those options. And scientists have also said that in theory, the concept is there where they would be able to manipulate the conception to allow 2 biological females to have males as well, but it's not something that they've been able to do at this current time. I hope that makes sense. So what are these other general issues that would need to be considered and addressed before something like this would ever be brought into our society? The first is the idea of perfect people, which, by the way, is the name of an incredible book. Have you read it? If you haven't, you really should. It's amazing. Flippin' scary, but very cool. Scientists for a long time have been talking about the ability to do something known as genetic screening, and what that means is for even IVF methods, they can create many different embryos and see which of those make certain characteristics that you like, and then choosing only those ones that you like to develop into a baby. So when IVG is combined with genetic screening before the eggs are implanted in a womb, people could, in theory, create hundreds of embryos and use genetic screening tools to select the best ones, which seems pretty immoral. If you think about it, people would be able to choose not just the gender of the child that they want, but perhaps things like height, or hair colour, or eyes. I realise I am going into the realm of the book here, but things like how strong they are, how athletic they are, how quickly they could pick up on different concepts like reading music. Where would the line be drawn? Where would that selection stop? And at what point would ethical procedure go, no, come on, this is getting a bit ridiculous now, to stop you from trying to create the perfect human? This really seems to be the biggest ethical issue in new methods of conception at the minute, but to be honest, I feel like there's a relatively easy answer to that. Personally, I think that could be rectified if there were laws in place that simply said, look, if you've got a hereditary disease or something that's going to clearly debilitate the child in a way that would negatively and very substantially affect their life, then genetic screening could be used to prevent that. But beyond that, any pick and mix characteristics shouldn't be allowed. In theory, it seems simple enough to me. The second ethical and legal issue is referred to as a celebrity scenario. If it really could be that easy to just create a baby by using skin cells that you scrape off of someone, you better know that there will be some crazy people out there who would gather those skin cells from people without their consent. Imagine this. Somebody loves Angelina Jolie. Who doesn't love Angelina Jolie? They plan a run-in where they accidentally bump into Angelina Jolie and, like the plot of a very, very cheesy spy film, manage to secure her skin cells. They then take those skin cells, turn it into an egg, and boom, they have a baby with Angelina Jolie. Now, as amazing as that might feel to the cell thief, is it really fair to ask Angelina Jolie to carry the responsibility of knowing that she is the parent of a child that she didn't consent to? And if this is a possibility, how on earth could this be protected against? Questions. Another dilemma is the issue of those people, and you know the people I'm talking about. The people who are very afraid of technology, who would have already clicked off of this video and who think they're entitled to say things like, who are you to decide that you get to give life? If you were destined to have children, then you would have the ability to do it naturally. I'm not entirely sure why I used that voice, but to those people, I do want to remind you that the exact same things were said about the IVF process in the 70s. People said it was evil, people compared it to the devil, people said it was the end of the world and we were getting too greedy and too overcocky and we shouldn't be able to control who can give life. But guess what? It happened. It's commonplace, and this amazing advancement in technology has helped literally millions of people be able to have happy and amazing families. And to the people who say that even IVF is bad, you are not worthy of my time, so please click off of this video. Finally, there is one additional worry at this stage in relation to IVG. Because it's such a new process that hasn't even been tested on people yet, we have such limited knowledge about its long-lasting effects. This also means we have very limited knowledge on the risks that could be associated with it. We don't really know what the consequences could be for playing with DNAs and cells in this way. We don't know what that means for the kids growing up after they've been birthed, and we don't know what that means for their kids should they wish to have any. Yes, in the mice experiment, their kids were okay and their kids could have kids, but mice are not people. The only way to really tell if this is a warranted issue is to try it. It would require having the ethical approval, going through a human trial, waiting for that baby to grow up, possibly waiting for that baby to have babies as well. And in all honesty, it could take all of those steps happening before a government would allow a procedure like this to be readily available to the general public. And that is a long way away. So, does this mean that men are no longer required in the bedroom, or indeed no, not yet, at least. I remember having this IVG option available doesn't mean that cisgender people can't continue to traditionally conceive in the ways that they currently do. And for couples who can't biologically conceive in the traditional way, it doesn't mean that the other options wouldn't still be available to them. This would just be an additional thing for them to consider. IVG could end up being a great way for people to be able to have biological kids who can't do so naturally, or even through IVF in its current state. But there really is still a long way to go. Some scientists predict that these developments could happen to allow humans to be able to experience this process within the next 5 years, though the ethical and legal procedures may take even longer than that to put in place. That is my cat. Other scientists say we can't possibly predict a timescale. It took 6 years to go from this tiny idea where absolutely nothing had been done to being able to replicate this in mice in its full effect. A whole shebang, so who knows how much longer it could take. Watch this space, I guess. Anyway, I hope this has been an interesting video for you. From a vested self-interest point of view, and for those of you who may have seen the video that I did with Jamie, you'll be aware that we are looking at different ways in which we could have kids, and being able to have biological kids would mean a lot to me. So we're very excited that this could be a method that we could actually use within our lifetime, and consider to have little Shaaba Jamie babies of our own. If you want to know about the other options that we're also exploring, and there is another option that is actually currently licensed and practicing now that could also be used as another biological method or pathway for this baby making? Oh, it's late. Then I will leave a link to the video downstairs. You're welcome to go and check that out. If you like this video, do consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will catch you next Monday with another vlog. For now, be kind and have a great day. Bye!